Hello, everybody. Welcome to the AV Geeks Lunchtime Streaming Show. I'm Skip Elsheimer, and we watch old 16mm films. Today, there's not going to be any Anson Williams bleak film material. I'm still reeling from the last film the second to last film I showed yesterday, called Money Tree, which was a Hanna-Barbera production made in 1971. During, I would say, that magic time for us Gen Xers, and it's live action. This was made for young adults, and it was incredibly bleak, really over the top bleak. So if you haven't seen it, watch yesterday's episode. But today, we're not going in that territory. Most of these films, well, there's kind of a back and forth. There's some stuff that, we got a mix of things. But we're going to start off with this. And this is what delights me. This is a film from the Prelinger archive that they recently scanned. And we get to see, in this film, which is a jam handy film, we get to see Rube Goldberg. And we get to hear what he sounds like. If you don't know who that is, you'll watch this and you'll figure it out. But I love this. I love seeing like something that, Rube Goldberg device is a cockamamie, like crazy. This bumps this, and then this kicks this, and then that catches on fire, and then moves this, But here's the guy. Here's the cartoonist. Enjoy.
Well, folks, there she is, the Rube Goldberg door opener upper. Sure, I know they have a gadget called an electric eye that does practically the same thing, but that's no good for a waiter. You see, the electricity might give the waiter a shock, then he'd forget to come back to pick up his tip, and he'd lose his professional standing. How does this door opener upper really work? It's very simple. But watch close. Now here's what happens. You see, waiter places cat B on pile of dirty dishes A. Now cat B sees mouse C. Of course, this is a stuffed mouse because he must be used for the next waiter. Now cat jumps on mouse C, causing lever D to lift lighted candle E, which ignites fuse F and sets off bomb G, opening door H very gently. Well, folks, I suppose there are one or two among you who think that my inventions are a bit ahead of their time. A shade fantastic, perhaps. All right, go on and say it. Downright screwy. But let me tell you something. I've got lots of company, genuine inventors, guys who've got their stuff protected by the United States Patent Office. And believe me, some of it needs protection, if you know what I mean. For instance, now, here's an invention that was granted patent number 556248 back in the year 1896. But don't ask me why. This little nifty is a labor-saving device if there ever was one. It's an automatic hat tipper for the lazy Lothario. Fitted snugly inside of this deluxe derby, that is, in addition to the wearer's slightly addled head, is a conglomeration of wheels, cogs, gears, ratchets, counterweights, strings, and pulleys, which gallantly doffs the chapeau whenever a young heiress passes by. Well, anyway, this is just one example of the many queer devices that have actually been patented. And here's a copy of the patent to prove it. Oh. There are literally hundreds of such patents on file in the United States Patent Office. The inventors were all perfectly serious. They really believed that their inventions would make things easier for us and our lives pleasanter and safer. But by far the most persistent dream of inventors has been to get something for nothing. That is, to create a machine that will start itself, overcome all friction, and still have enough power left to do useful work. In short, perpetual motion machines. Now here's a typical example of what I mean, a famous old standby. Of course, you all know that when something is dipped underwater, it seems to lose weight. So this particular perpetual motion machine is designed to have some of the weights in water and some of them out of water at all times. It's all very simple. And so are you if you think it'll work. But confidentially, I've got one that will work. And if you'll excuse me for a few minutes, I'll show you.
No, Mr. Goldberg, not even your genius is equal to that task. In fact, the United States Patent Office will no longer grant a patent for the design of a perpetual motion machine because the experts in that office know that you can't get something for nothing, that you can't get power out of an engine without paying for it in fuel. Fortunately for us, however, man has discovered a virtually unlimited source of power. He has paid for that power by years of painstaking research and experimentation. That source of power is gasoline, the chief product of the petroleum industry. Gasoline, in fact, is the greatest single source of power in the world today. And the automobile engine is by far the greatest user of gasoline's power. Here's a device that looks like a cross between a trench mortar and an automobile engine. It's just the thing to illustrate the principles of getting power from gasoline. Liquid gasoline contains the power all right, but unaided it can't release the force it holds. When a light is applied to it, liquid gasoline burns as innocently as a wax candle. This proves what we all know. Gasoline has to be mixed with plenty of air to release its power. Then gasoline has more force than an equal amount of gunpowder. Into the first cylinder goes a mixture of air and gasoline. Into the fourth cylinder, an equal weight of gunpowder. When the cylinders are touched off with an electric sparker, the swoosh shows lots of power. When a piston is put into these cylinders, fueled again with gunpowder and a mixture of gasoline and air, a better test of power will show up. The gunpowder has the better of it here, but the gasoline hasn't taken off its wraps. Gasoline does its best work when it's under pressure. In the cylinder, fueled with the mixture of air and gasoline, the piston is pressed down until the mixture is under high pressure. It is clear that the highest pressure kicks the piston the farthest, develops more power. One method of obtaining this added pressure in the automobile engine was to increase the piston stroke. But when carried beyond a certain point, the engine starts to knock. So several other changes were made to increase power without causing a knock. First, the piston top was redesigned so that it will mix the air and the gasoline together more completely. In the latest engines, the roof of the combustion chamber around the intake valve has been lowered just a fraction of an inch. But that was enough so that now the gasoline is mixed with free air and compressed more for more power. Today, the driver of the motor car doesn't get something for nothing, but he does get more power than ever before from the gasoline he buys. Our available supplies of fuel now do more work with increasing efficiency and economy.
discovered the secret of perpetual motion. Yes, sir. Long, long after you and I have departed from this earthly scene, this machine of mine will be working on and on and on and on, never stopping for Sundays, holidays, or bank nights. On and on and on and on. Oh, skip it.
So not only did we get to see what Rube Goldberg looked like, we also got to hear him speak, and then also what a forced laugh sounds like coming from him. And so that's, Jam Handy, they would, like a lot of these Jam Handy films, these were a hook. So basically they would show this in a theater, and it has a kind of a general interest to it as far as the whole thing about patents and all that. And then they switch over at some point to talking about something GM related or something related to whoever sponsored the film, like about tires or about electricity or the telephone. And then, so it's meant to be entertaining, but it's an ad. So there you go. All right. I love it, man. I absolutely love finding something that features somebody you're like, oh my gosh, I've heard of this person forever, but I never knew what they looked like or what they sounded like. So this next film shows us the hundreds of unseen faces of people that make Kimberly-Clark toilet paper and facial tissue and other fine paper products. These are the people. Enjoy.
These are the mills. Paper mills. Paper mills at war. These are the mills of Kimberly-Clark. These are the people. Small town people. People from Main Street. People at war. These are the people of Kimberly-Clark. These are the people who put on uniforms to fight. Over 2,000 of them. These are the people who fight by working at home. Their story at war is a story of wood. Their story of war is one of pulp and cellulose wadding. It's a story as simple as a single sheet of white paper. A single piece of paper that may be destined to carry the most important military dispatch of the war. White paper, by the sheet, by the ton. And these are the people who turn it out. Turn out all important white paper for the Army, the Navy, paper for information, for military management, for messages, paper for books, for pamphlets, for training our fighting men. Yes, even for road signs in liberated countries. White paper made on machines. White paper counted by hand, carefully, quickly. Women at war. Women in production service, mobilized into a single unit with a single purpose, doing all they can to supply the vital needs of people at war abroad and people at home. Vital needs from wood pulp. Kleenex, for instance, a cellulose wadding product, going to the armed services in an endless stream and going too in large amounts to civilians. More, and more Kleenex for war. Paper mills, war. It does sound a little strange. And yet, here is wood pulp that will eventually be made into kimsal. Kimsal, a wadding material for the comfort of people at war, to help keep soldiers cool in the tropics and warm in the Arctic. Kimsal, 1,200 feet of it every minute. Great rolls of it for Army Quonset huts and other war housing needs. Layer after layer of it, stitched and compressed. And packed for shipment overseas. These are the people who make it carefully, make it well, for these are people at war. From the same wood pulp that goes into the making of kimsal, another equally important product of war is made, kimpak. Kimpak in rolls, in sheets, in pads, backed or unbacked, thick or thin. Kimpack, a crepe cellulose wadding for protecting such precious cargoes in transit as instruments which may be injured by a slight jar. Delicate aircraft instruments. Fragile war material of all kinds. Yes, the Kimpack these workers turn out often may make the difference, the simple difference between success and failure of a bomber's mission. Remember the old saying, for want of a nail, the shoe was lost? Well, for the want of packing, a bomber may be lost. It takes people at machines, and it takes men to keep machines going in a paper mill at war. Maintenance men. Maintenance men who also make war products. The heavy-duty cargo winch, for example. Yes, and it takes power, too. Lots of it. And men to turn out that power. And along with the men and women at beaters, strippers, trimmers, and paper machines, along with the maintenance men and the men in the powerhouses, are the men of the War Products Division. No department, but a group of Kimberly-Clark men from different mills. Chemists, physicists, laboratory technicians, and field engineers. Fighters? Yes, indeed. These are the men who developed Kimsol and Kimpack, who also took the resin scrap of another war products manufacturer and developed Kimpreg. Kimpreg, a paper for servicing selected war materials to make them stronger, more durable, more efficient. And from the same resin scrap, the War Products Division men developed Casolite, a laminating and molding paper. Paper. Paper to replace steel, aluminum, synthetic resin, and other critical materials in war products. Casotex, another War Products Division paper development. Casotex, to replace precious rubber and fabrics. Casotex for use in expendable war items that must be leak-proof, that must last. New ideas, new products from pulp. New uses for these products. That's the story of the War Products Division. Engineering and structural men. These are the men who share a large, dramatic part of the overall story of Kimberly-Clark at war. For these are the men who performed a production miracle, who converted a mill from making a product of peace in paper to making an intricate product of war in metal. A big job? Difficulties? Problems? Yes. And these are the men who licked them. In 7 fast-moving months, these men turned blueprints into Maxim machine gun mounts, transformed a wallpaper mill into an ordnance assembly plant, one of the amazing production conversions of this war. In 7 months, these men brought together 120 subcontractors, 5,000 people in 8 different states. More than 1,900 parts are needed to make a gun mount. 1,900 parts. Each one carefully stamped or machined, some to tolerances as close as 1/7 the width of a human hair. 120 different subcontractors in 8 states, supplying over 1,900 different parts, planned, worked out, and supervised by Kimberly-Clark engineering and structural men. 1,900 parts brought together and assembled in a wallpaper mill. And these are the people who do it. Old, experienced hands. New, learning hands. Willing hands. Important hands. Yes, these are the hands of people at war. Paper mill people, making a machine gun mount. A multiple gun anti-aircraft weapon. A fighting unit designed to fire so rapidly it can bring down a low-level bomber flying at a speed of 300 to 400 miles per hour. And to the Kimberly-Clark Ordnance Plant goes the coveted Army-Navy E Award, representing a nation's gratitude and recognition of its production efforts on the Maxim gun mount. The E pennant, truly a fitting reward to Kimberly-Clark and its people for the work and loyalty demonstrated in this picture. People, small town people, Main Street people, receiving the Armed Services' highest honor for outstanding production of necessary war material. Yes, these are the people who fight the war of production, whose unity, tireless energy, unselfish devotion have written and are continuing to write the glowing story of Kimberly-Clark at war. Paper mills at war. Paper mills whose all-out effort for victory today points toward the promise of a greater tomorrow. A tomorrow of happiness, a tomorrow of prosperity, a tomorrow of lasting peace.
That was another jam handy for Kimberly-Clark. We have some other Kimberly-Clark sponsored films, and they're actually made by Disney. So we have one that's about how to catch a cold, and it's by Kleenex. And then we have The Story of Menstruation, which is by Modus, I believe, which is Kimberly-Clark's feminine hygiene line. And at AV Geeks, we use Kim Wipes or Kim Tech wipes because they are pretty good in cleaning dirt and residue off of film gates on our film scanners, and they don't leave a paper residue or paper dust residue, so that's why we use those. And we also clean light source surfaces and things like that because they don't scratch either. Yeah, there you go, Kimberly-Clark. Speaking of Disney, we're going to tempt the fates, and we're going to watch this film called Nature's Strangest Creatures. What do you think they are? What do you think nature's strangest creatures are? I mean, we certainly have, probably most of you have grown up with the Discovery Channel or Animal Planet, and you have seen lots of strange creatures. Back in the day, I believe that this was something that was maybe shown in theaters, but then also on television and then distributed to schools. So we'll see what happens, and I'll keep an eye. Hopefully, we showed Man on the Moon, which was a Disney film, and we did not get in trouble, surprisingly, because that film, I think, is more popular than this film. But we'll see. Here we go. Chance and the Fates. Chance and the Hammer. Here's Nature's Strangest Creatures. Enjoy.
one time in the dim reaches of the past, Australia and her island neighbors were connected to the Asiatic mainland. Then, as the level of the oceans rose, the land bridge disappeared, cutting off this faraway area from the rest of the world. Thus isolated, a unique population of wildlife, free from outside influences and major predators, continued to develop along primitive lines. And so here, with little change throughout the ages, nature has preserved a sanctuary for her strangest creatures. Still clinging to existence here is the giant bat, so large it's called the flying fox. On muddy tide flats, the lungfish hops about on fins and tail. When the tide comes in, it behaves like a fish again. The frilled lizard vividly recalls that age when reptiles ruled the earth. And only here is found the spiny anteater, or echidna, a creature akin to the reptiles, for it hatches its young from eggs. Also unique to this land is the Tasmanian devil, so named for its ill temper, because its ears turn red when angry. Another native oddity is the tiger cat, misnamed perhaps, for it's more fox-like than feline. Stranger still is the duck-billed platypus, nature's first attempt to make a mammal. His scientific name is Paradoxus, and paradox he is. With a bill like a duck, a tail like a beaver, a body like a reptile, and fur like an otter, altogether he's really like nothing else in all the world. Although not a true amphibian, the platypus is at home in the water, where he feeds on grubs, frogs, and worms. Platypus burrows are dug deep in the bank of a stream. Families are raised. But instead of giving to their young, the platypus lays eggs. The incubation period is brief, and newly hatched embryos are so immature they bear no resemblance to the parent. Eventually, however, features of the adult, including the characteristic duck bill, begin to take shape. The babies are nourished on mother's milk, but the female platypus doesn't nurse her young in the ordinary way. Instead, her breast is covered with hundreds of milk pores, so the young simply lap up the milk from the belly fur of the mother. After about 2 months, the babies can be left alone. But mother's departure is just what the native cat has been waiting for. Anticipating his scheme, the mother built a barricade in the burrow. First, it appears empty. Then the cat's sharp ears detect sounds, but it can't tell from which direction they come. Completely confused, the cat eventually finds the problem too baffling to cope with. When the babies are old enough to figure out the secret of the false wall, they're also ready to get on with the business of being platypuses, as strange a prospect as ever confronted one of nature's creatures. While the northern hemisphere basks in the summer sun, July brings winter to the land down under. But the change of season doesn't bother the platypus. Built something along the lines of a toboggan, he finds the going smooth, but too smooth, in fact. Probably the best-known natives here are the kangaroos and the wallabies. The bitter cold brings harsh times for all but the very young, called joeys. Being marsupials, they're cozy and comfortable in mother's pouch. Here they remain through salt. Following a meal of grass, mother and joey indulge in primping. After so long a time in such cramped quarters, emerging is like shedding winter woolies. A neighbor of the kangaroos is the emu, Australian version of the ostrich. Despite disturbances, broods of up to 20 young are hatched each year. Stranger still is the fact that the male incubates the eggs. Among the strange creatures here, many are tree dwellers. The bushy-tailed possum is equipped with a prehensile tail that helps him move from limb to limb. Typical of so many of the mammals of this land, the bushy tail is also marsupial. Mammary glands are located inside the pouch, so the joeys don't even have to come out for meals. Being raised in a pouch develops a habit of dependence on the mother, a habit that isn't easily broken. Thus encumbered, the mother has to do the climbing for her young as well as for herself. Even offspring from previous litters still insist on clinging to mother's side. Like the possum, the koala is also a tree dweller. From this creature was modeled the teddy bear, although the koala actually isn't related to the bear at all. The koala also has the problem of ditching overgrown youngsters. Her strategy is to set a pace too fast for him to follow. In this land of clinging offspring, a mother wombat also wants to get rid of her youngster. But he won't take the hint, even when she gives him the cold shoulder. Unable to crawl into one entrance, he'll try another. It's a tight squeeze, but if he can just get his foot in the door... aggressive even than the pouched animals is the echidna, or spiny anteater. This creature is so low on the evolutionary scale that his mouth is only a hole in his snout, out of which projects his long, sticky tongue. His sharp claws are perfect for burrowing. With this shield of bristling bayonets, his neighbors leave him alone. A baby wallaby, however, has to learn his lesson the hard way. To the echidna, a rotten log is sure to yield a meal of ant eggs. To make egg gathering easy, the tongue is coated with a sticky substance to which anything it touches adheres. The echidna's appetite for eggs is seldom satisfied, and he isn't at all particular about who laid them. But there may be more tasty morsels on the other side of the stream. With a natural snorkel, he's at home both above and below the surface. Every creature of this land has unique characteristics. The honey glider, so named due to his taste for nectar, is a species similar to the American flying squirrel. Mothers, too, enjoy the sport, but don't dare take off overloaded. So today, as in centuries past, the creatures of this land down under pursue their business of survival. For here in this faraway and isolated land, nature has preserved a living sanctuary for the strangest of her creatures.
So basically, they were like, "Let's go to Australia," and was that so? That lizard that was walking on its hind legs, was that a Jesus lizard? It's interesting they showed it, but they didn't talk about it at all. So I thought that was fascinating. All right, last film. This is Encyclopedia Britannica, and this has what a lot of stuff that I like, which is what I would call meter porn, or things that show a lot of test equipment. So like, like a little fluctuating needle or a little, pen that's doing like an EEG, or, and then there's a lot of leads on things. And so that test footage, apparatus footage, I really like. And this film is filled with it. And there's some implicit things in this that I love. So just keep an eye on all the different labels on the different meters. This is called regulating body temperature. And this guy is going through the paces. I hope he got paid well. Chances are he didn't. Probably this was like for his thesis, his master's thesis or something. But here we go. Enjoy.
Okay, check that probe, make sure it's comfortable.
That's all right.
You'll be carrying that all day long now. Will it be in your way for work?
That feels pretty good.
Go ahead, get dressed, and bring your parka when you come back.
Yeah, see that.
Okay. Is that holding on tight?
That's pretty good so
You see your temperature coming out here? Already recording?
Yeah.
I don't want it coming loose. Now, you keep this parka with you at all times, even when you're in your room tonight, because we'll be listening in on the air temperature on your radio there.
Okay, I'll be in tomorrow morning.
Okay, see you then. First pop.
Okay. How's the record look?
Well, you sure were going in and out yesterday morning. Look at the air
We
temperature.
take it for granted that our body temperature will remain nearly constant no matter how much the air temperature may change.
Jogging. Oh, no wonder.
In fact, our body temperature seldom moves more than 1 degree above or below its normal temperature of about 37 degrees centigrade.
Air temperature yesterday, your body temperature didn't shift more than 1.5 degrees in spite of all the jogging.
Yet consider the range in environmental temperatures within which we and other animals must function. Some animals are often exposed to temperatures of more than 50 degrees centigrade below freezing. Others live where temperatures may rise higher than 45 degrees above freezing. Both kinds of animals share the ability to maintain a fairly high and nearly constant body temperature throughout life. How to explain this remarkable constancy? The heat that warms our bodies and those of other animals is produced by the cells. Heat is released during metabolism, the chemical reactions of life. If the temperature rises or falls, cell functions speed up or slow down. So the more constant body temperature remains, the better the cells and therefore an animal can function. Animals differ in how efficiently they are able to regulate their body temperature. This catfish, for example, normally it prefers a body temperature of around 27 degrees centigrade. But in this divided tank, the water on one side is much colder and on the other much warmer than the animal prefers. Watch how the fish behaves when it is allowed to move at will between the two sides. The gate is triggered by an electric eye. Evidently, the fish is able to sense the difference between the two sides because it moves from side to side so that the body temperature remains nearly constant. In other words, the animal behaves in a way that will preserve its normal body functions. But if the animal is not allowed to leave the cold water, soon the animal's body temperature cools to that of the environment. As a result, its body processes have slowed down. And it's the same with amphibians and reptiles. None of these animals produces enough heat in its cells to raise body temperature much above that of the environment. They must rely on external heat sources to keep warm and to maintain normal body functions. For this reason, they're called ectotherms, meaning heat from outside. With a few exceptions, only birds and mammals produce heat at such a high rate that they can keep their bodies warm even in cold surroundings. Such animals are called endotherms, meaning heat from within. Usually, the bodies of endotherms are warmer than their surroundings. As a result, they are continually losing heat to the cooler environment. So, if body temperature is to remain nearly constant, the body must lose heat no faster than it can produce heat from its food. In other words, heat loss must be balanced by heat gain. To maintain this balance, the body continually exchanges heat with the environment. The ways in which heat is gained or lost can be shown with a heat flow sensor.
Okay, let's put on the heat flow sensor.
The sensor measures calories of heat flowing into or out of the body.
Let's try radiant heat gain from the heat lamp. Good. Put your hand right up in front of the lamp.
Heat
Good.
is exchanged in a number of ways. By radiation, heat flowing through space.
Okay, yeah, turn on. Let's try conductive now.
Okay.
Press your hand right onto the table. Oh, that's good. Table feels
By
good.
conduction, where the body is in contact with a cool or warm object.
What happens if you blow on it? Let's try convective loss. Okay.
By convection, cool or warm air blowing past the body. The body can lose or gain heat by any of these ways, depending on which is warmer, body or environment.
I'm just going to put a little bit of water on there and then see what, that was cooling from the water. Now let's watch evaporative cooling. Here's where there was no evaporation. This is due to evaporation.
On the other hand, evaporation of moisture from the skin always results in heat loss. Heat exchange occurs in all ways simultaneously and changes from moment to moment. The body, monitoring these changes by way of signals in the nervous system and the bloodstream, makes continual adjustments in a large variety of ways. Through behavior, for example, when we or other animals feel hot or cold, we do something about it. Behavior is the most common way of adjusting to heat or cold. Another way is by insulation. Fur and feathers insulate on the outside, fat on the inside. Man, basically a tropical animal, survives in cold regions because he can change his insulation at will. But sometimes behavior and insulation are not sufficient to cope with the effects of a cold or hot environment. So to maintain its temperature constant, the body also makes delicate physiological adjustments. How and when these adjustments are made can best be studied in the laboratory. Note the conditions at the start of the experiment.
Rectal temperature all right?
Rectal temperature, normal, 36.8 degrees. Room temperature, a comfortable 28 degrees centigrade.
Time for the skin temperatures.
Skin temperature,
Chest.
about 36.5 degrees, nearly as high as the rectal temperature.
Just that
The
way.
metabolic rate, a measure of the total heat production of the cells, is computed from the amount of oxygen consumed and is measured in kilocalories per hour.
Very good recording.
At rest, this man's heat production is about 60 kilocalories per hour. The man is continually losing heat to the cooler room. But even while resting, he is producing enough heat to replace all the heat he is losing. Now the room will be cooled. Even after being in the cold for over 2 hours, this man's internal temperature has climbed a fraction of a degree. The additional heat is the result of shivering, an involuntary increase in the work of muscle cells. More cellular work, more heat production. This is the body's only way of producing heat to offset heat losses. While the internal temperature remained nearly constant, however, skin temperature has dropped sharply, especially in the arms and legs. It's as though the body were trying to keep a constant temperature inside the trunk, where the vital organs are, while allowing the extremities to get cold. The temperature changes in the extremities are directly related to the amount of blood flowing in them. Circulating through the open vessels, warm blood from deep inside the body conveys heat to the extremities. If the air temperature drops, many vessels in the extremities constrict. Less blood flow near the skin, less heat loss from the body. Control of blood flow in the extremities is of vital importance to animals which live in cold regions, such as the Arctic wolf. This sensor measures the temperature of the wolf's unprotected foot pad. In this experiment, the animal's foot will be immersed in a bath of antifreeze to simulate the conditions of the Arctic winter, well below the freezing point of the cells. The bath is cooled by dry ice.
Is minus 34. Okay, back to the foot. You ready to dip?
Yeah.
Okay, let's dip. Go.
The animal is losing heat very rapidly to the cold bath.
Leveling out at 0.
Yet within seconds, the foot temperature levels off just above freezing and remains there indefinitely. Rather than constricting the blood vessels, the wolf has pumped more warm blood from the trunk to the foot to keep it from freezing. The animal is controlling its blood flow so precisely that only the exact amount of blood needed to keep the foot from freezing is allowed to leave the trunk. In cold environments, then, animals can use two physiological mechanisms to adjust to heat losses. One is to control blood flow. By constricting blood vessels near the body surface, animals keep heat within the trunk. By dilating the vessels, many animals exposed to extreme cold keep unprotected parts of the body from freezing. The other mechanism is to increase metabolism, producing more heat. The result is a constant internal temperature. In some situations, though, the body must get rid of excess heat. Excess heat presents a particular problem because a rise in body temperature of only a few degrees will seriously disrupt biochemical reactions.
We have a rectal reading? Thank you.
Good recording now.
Turn the treadmill on.
Exercise, an increase in cellular work, produces excess heat. In response, blood vessels dilate to increase blood flow to the skin, from where heat can be lost to the environment. But since the room is warmer than the body, the blood picks up heat. Body temperature rises. So to balance heat gain with heat loss, the body activates another mechanism, sweating. Sweat evaporates quickly in low humidity, cooling the skin and thereby the blood flowing near the skin. So even though this man continues to produce heat at a high rate, his internal temperature has stabilized at a safe level. The situation is different when the air is very humid. In a humid environment, sweat cannot evaporate efficiently. Evaporative cooling is ineffective. Under these conditions, the body's mechanisms are unable to keep the internal temperature from rising to a dangerous level.
Time to stop, Jim.
Can you get that switch, please? Very good.
Usually, however, the temperature within the trunk fluctuates less than 1 degree. The main heat control center, the body's thermostat, so to speak, is located in the hypothalamus, near the base of the brain. The function of the hypothalamus in regulating body temperature can be shown with the help of a specially prepared animal. The temperature of the hypothalamus is measured through the sealed tubing implanted in the head. Water circulating through the tubing can be warmed or cooled to simulate the flow of warm or cool blood through the hypothalamus. The normal temperature of the hypothalamus is about 38.6 degrees centigrade. Room temperature is about 25 degrees. The animal is resting comfortably. First, the hypothalamus will be warmed. Even though room temperature remains constant, warming the hypothalamus causes the dog to pant, the typical response to heat in many animals. Now the hypothalamus will be cooled. All other conditions will remain the same. Cooling the hypothalamus causes the animal to shiver. Evidently, there's a narrow temperature range which the body considers normal and within which no observable adjustments are made. But if this range is exceeded, the hypothalamus senses the change and triggers an appropriate response. The greater the change, the more intense the response. To adjust to the wide variety of conditions in which the body may find itself, the hypothalamus can reset its neutral temperature range. Higher, as in a cold environment or during a fever, or lower, as when exercising. This, in turn, triggers the body's responses at a higher or lower temperature. Thus, the hypothalamus has the flexibility needed to achieve a delicate balance that enables the body to function normally under a wide variety of conditions. The capability to maintain a high body temperature represents one of the supreme achievements in the evolution of life. Only animals with this capability can overcome the heating and chilling effects of their immediate environment, and so can maintain peak physical and mental efficiency virtually at all times. It can be truly said of these animals that, though it be winter outside, the fire of life burns steadfast within.
So I took the wrong time to go fold my laundry, and I missed the fact that there was some animal testing, and I apologize for that. There is something at the end that said that no animals were harmed, but come on, man, you put a tube in someone's brain, that's harmed. And, you know, of course, we don't mind the hapless grad student who knew what was going to happen and how he was going to be wired up and probed, and you know, who knows, the imagination reels at what the rectal probe was going to look like and how that wire was going to come out and all that stuff. And it could be that I just recently saw Altered States again, that Ken Russell film. I saw it on Monday, and I love that film. It's wonderful. The hallucinations and dreams are amazing. But it's also, there's a lot of probes and monitoring and like all that stuff. I love all that stuff, and I feel like this film could be edited very easily into a horror short just by changing the narration and the music. Anyways, apologies again. I'm not a fan of showing you guys animal testing during lunch. Anyhow, I hope everybody has a great weekend, and I will be back on Monday. And hopefully you will be too. If you like what you saw or generally like the idea of what we're showing, hit the thumbs up, hit the like button. Other ways to support us are via the super thanks button, or going to ko-fi.com/avgeeks or patreon.com/avgeeks. Those are great ways to support us. Also watching other films that we've put online. Some of those that we get money for. When you watch, it's like pennies, but it helps. It adds up, and we appreciate that. Also, inviting your friends and family to watch what we have. Those are other great ways to support us, because we love showing you films, and that's the reason that we do what we do. This is the reason that I'm heavily in debt, buying scanners, and heavily in debt paying for internet, fast internet, and paying for a bunch of hard drives, and paying rental fees for storing these films, because we want to share them. That's why I'm around, why I live, is to show you. So thank you for being there and for watching these films. Everybody have a great weekend, and we will see you soon. Take care. Bye.